who's former attorney for President Trump, and Brett Tolman, former U.S. attorney. Timothy, as an attorney, as a member of two different bars, I am disgusted tonight reading this indictment. Am I wrong in feeling like this is a prosecution of a political disagreement and a political opponent going into a presidential election?
You know, reading that indictment, the thing that jumped out at me is exactly that. They're not citing anywhere where he admits that he knew what he was saying was false. Only it's a more detailed version of what January 6th committee tried to do, which was say, well, he received advice from some people, and then he received advice from other people that contradicted that. So he should have decided to follow the people that we agree with. And so how you can then spin that into actual knowledge that these claims of fraud were false, I don't think you can get to that point. It really is all about what his state of mind is. And the indictment was somewhat underwhelming on that point to me.
Well, underwhelming. I don't know what document you read, Tim, but I think it's beyond underwhelming. I've read a lot of indictments in my day in serious cases involving white-collar criminal defense as my old life. Brett, what am I missing here? Donald Trump thought the election was rigged. We all know it. He said it forever. Now that essentially is a federal crime. Really?
You know, Laura, when you watch a Hollywood movie where they're portraying some fantastic, amazing athlete, but they're using an actor who just doesn't have the right swing or can't make the jump shot, that is what this prosecutor is, and that is what this indictment is. It is cringy. It's so tough for me, having drafted these, presented these to grand juries, to sit and watch him manipulate and the legal wrangling that he has to go through in this document to actually criminalize thought, criminalize legal advice, criminalize a legal position and a strategy that, whether they're right or wrong, that they had, believing that this election was rigged. And so you don't see any reference to mens rea, the criminal intent, because they can't put it in the document. They can't find criminal intent in Donald Trump or any of these four lawyers, a political consultant, and a civil lawyer in DOJ. Those are the co-conspirators in this case.
Well, Tim, MSNBC is trying to frame this as a moment where America is at a crossroads, but for another reason than we are. Watch.
It is one of the biggest cases ever in the history of the United States. It is up there with Dred Scott. It is up there with Brown versus Board of Education, because it goes to who we are as a people. And Jack Smith today did something to restore confidence in the rule of law in unimaginable ways.
Tim, that is the former Solicitor General for the Obama administration. That's the individual who argued cases before the Supreme Court. So his point is, because it's historic, it must be good. We'll talk about that legal analysis for a moment.
Well, first of all, Neil Katyal is a liar. Okay, when I went on MSNBC after the Trump indictment in Mar-a-Lago and talked about prosecutorial misconduct, because he didn't want to address the substance of those arguments, he lied. He made up court cases and said this was already rejected by the appellate courts. So for him to have any credibility whatsoever when talking about Donald Trump, to me, is completely shot. I don't think he even read that indictment before he made those statements. You know, when you look at this thing, they're talking about how you have to find that he had knowledge, and yet Jack Smith his team has not even finished their investigation. They haven't interviewed some of the most key witnesses on that point. They rushed an indictment this week, as opposed to waiting until later this month when they'd actually finished their investigation. You know, whether that's because of Hunter Biden or whether it's because he was afraid that Fani Willis was going to beat him to the punch. Either way, he brought a sloppy indictment before he finished an investigation.
I mean, Brett, the former, speaking of having no credibility, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe was on the other networks. This was his analysis of the indictment.
All conspiracy statutes. So they require that the person charged entered into an agreement with another person to commit the criminal act and then, of course, executed at least one act in furtherance of that agreement.
A majority of House Republicans voted to disenfranchise the voters of Pennsylvania and to disenfranchise the voters of Arizona.
If you see a legislator indicted in this case, which I'm not sure that we will, but if you do, it's going to be someone who went beyond just their vote in Congress.
Brett, they're now at the point where they're not going to try to just put Trump in jail, but I guess a member of Congress who supported Donald Trump. Do we see where this is going? That's what they want.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they want. They want to go after politicians. They want to go after anybody that disagrees with them. You look at Section 241. That's the charge they're bringing, a civil rights claim against them, and that's their conspiracy. That charge, in the language of the statute, says a conspiracy to injure another who's trying to assert their constitutional, to exercise their constitutional rights. That does not apply here, but they don't care. They know they can get the indictment, and then they can pursue the case, and they can get the objective that they have in place. I mean, this thing is not just weak, but there are problems. When I agree with what you said, Laura. This is a motion to dismiss, which is rare in a criminal case.
Right.
They didn't present any of the evidence that might have been exculpatory to the grand jury. Instead, they ramrodded this through. I can't wait to see what happens to them in court. It might be at the appellate level.
Yeah. Well, Tim, can you speak to that for a moment, a motion to dismiss in this case? Because to survive a motion to dismiss, what does this prosecutor have to have established in that indictment?
Well, he has to establish that he has evidence of every single element of that crime. And so,
right.
Who knows what they presented to that grand jury? The big problem is that prosecutors, they don't have to present everything to the grand jury. If you have 20 witnesses saying it didn't happen and only one who said it did, you could just put that one witness in. And we're kind of seeing that here because they haven't interviewed the most important witnesses on that key element of knowledge. They waited until after the indictment, to even have those interviews scheduled. So are they going to then go back to the grand jury and say, "Hey, sorry, we didn't give you everything. Here's a lot more information"? I very much doubt it. I think that they are going to have issues of Brady violations with the withholding of exculpatory materials. Absolutely, it's a mess. And here's the other thing.
Go ahead,
a case of this magnitude is going to go on long past the election.
Yeah, but Brett, I love the fact that he goes, well, but we seek a speedy trial. Okay, former president of the United States, who's tied with, at the very least tied with Biden right now, was like, no, we got to get a speedy trial. Is he kidding me with this?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say something I'm not supposed to say on TV, but that in and of itself was just a laughingstock line tonight.
Especially since, Laura, they waited 2.5 years to bring the case. Now hurry up and give me my 70 days.
Exactly. All right, Tim and Brett, stay there.